Advait, Bar. So let us begin our uh, third week of our semester, and we are going to cover what um, uh, carrier densities in uh, intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductors today. And before that, let me talk a little bit about the what
Sir, on
octave.
YouTube.
Huh?
Sir, on YouTube, you are not.
What? What on YouTube?
So on YouTube, you are not. Matlab live is not visible.
Now it might be. I can see 9 concurrent viewers now.
Okay.
Can you see it now? Others can see it. Okay. So let us talk about Sanjeev. Can you reply to my
Yes, sir.
question? Can you see
No,
me
sir.
now?
No, sir. No, sir.
Can you go to my channel because there are 17 concurrent viewers right now. Other people can see me. Can anybody else reply if you can see me and hear me properly on YouTube? Anybody from the class?
Yes, sir.
You
You
can
are
see
live.
me and hear me? Okay. So, uh, what about Octave? Octave is a programming language, a little more than a programming language. It's a software package which can do multiple things, and we are going to use this. You might know other languages, but even if you know other languages, what language did you study in your computer science? Java? Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Java, sir.
Okay. Okay. So you could use Java, but your life will be very difficult if you use Java to do these questions because you have to plot and all those things. So you have to write long codes in Java if you want to do those things. But in Octave, you just have to write one single line to plot something. Okay. So it is much easier to use Octave than any other language that you probably know previously. If some of you want to use MATLAB, that is also fine. The syntax for MATLAB and Octave is exactly the same. Means hold on a minute. So where was I? Yeah, we had so we can easily plot things in Octave. So we'll be using Octave for this particular course. Yeah, MATLAB. So the syntax of MATLAB and Octave is the same. So if you want to use MATLAB, that is also fine. But MATLAB costs money. Octave is free. So that's why I am choosing Octave. Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about the basic principles of plotting of numerical methods. Okay, so for example, if we were to talk about, if I had to plot a function, okay, a function is given to me, y is equal to fx, okay, and I want to plot this function. So usually what do? We have on our x-axis we have x, and on the y-axis we have our y. Okay, if I were to ask you to do it on your notebook, how would you do it? Anybody? How would you, if you don't know what the shape of a function looks like, let us say parabola, you know, x square looks like parabola and you already have seen it. Yeah, if you have never seen a function before and I gave you a function y is equal to fx and I asked you to plot it, how would you do it? Yeah, go ahead. Who was it?
Draw
By
scatter
putting in
plot.
values and dots. Yes, scatter plot.
What?
Draw scatter plot. Take some values of x and plot the corresponding values of y.
Yeah, and then join them together.
Yes.
Okay, so you would take certain, let us say this is how the function looks like, and you would take individual points, okay, and you, depending on how accurate you want it, you are going to plot more points initially. Okay, so if I had plotted this and I could, there are multiple ways of joining them also. Okay, you could join them in a straight line, you could join them in a depending on means having some what slope, some loop to it or something like that. Okay, maybe you want a smooth curve, so you make it as smooth as possible. Okay, so you would do something like this. Okay, you start with a few points and then you join them together. Okay, this is exactly the same that we will do numerically also. Okay, instead of us doing the calculations, the computer is going to do the calculations and it is going to do the plotting. Okay, so now the question is, how many points do we choose? That is an important question. So if you look, you can, so you can all, when you are doing your own assignments, you can do a hit and trial. Okay, let us say you choose 10 points. Okay, if you choose 10 points to do this this plotting, what you are going to see, most likely you are going to see very jagged lines. Okay, if I were to plot just using 10 points, let us say these are the, so instead of 10 points, let us do 5. Okay, it will look something like this. Okay, so it is very jagged. Okay, most if it's a normal binomial function, then you do not expect it to look like this. Okay, so obviously you have to increase your number of points. So if you make it, instead of 5, you make it let us say 10. Okay, it will look a little more smooth, okay, a little smoother, and then you can increase it further. So most cases for the experiments, for the calculations that we are doing, 100 points should be good enough. Okay, if you find that it is taking too long, you can reduce the number of points to do the calculation. If you are finding that it is not as smooth as you expect it to be, so you can increase the number of points. So it is up to you. Finally, it is your choice, how many points you want to choose to make your plots. Okay, so what you are going to do is that again, very easy to make vectors or matrices in Octave. Everything in Octave, every variable is effectively a matrix. Whether a 1 by 1 matrix, that is all right, but it is a matrix. Okay, so for example, if I had to plot, if fx is equal to x square, okay, this is what I want to plot. I want to plot fx is equal to x square, where x is between, again, when you are talking about numerical plotting, you always have to define the range, because you cannot plot from minus infinity to infinity. Your graph is not going to appear on your screen at all. Okay, so you cannot do minus infinity to infinity, so you have to choose a range. So let us say we are choosing a range, x is between 2 and minus 2. Okay, we want to plot x from we want to plot x between 2 and minus 2. Now if I wanted to plot this between 2 and minus 2, I need to define certain points for x like we did there. Okay, so in Octave you can very easily define, you are starting from minus 2, okay, and minus 2 space 2. Okay, what is this going to do? What are we defining here? Anybody knows? They have already studied Octave. We put a colon. Colon is your what? So we are defining a vector, okay, an sort of an equidistant, where the points in between in the vector are equidistant from each other. Okay, so what are we doing here? Minus 2 is your starting point, plus 2 is your end point, and then you define your spacing between the multiple points. So if we wanted 100 points between minus 2 and 2, what should be the spacing?
0.01.
No, not 0, 1.
0.04.
Yes. So if I wanted 100 points between 2 and minus 2, I would do 2 minus 2 over 100. That would be your spacing. Okay, like you would do your integration or differentiation, you define an h, no? So this is your h. Okay, h is 2 minus 2 over 100. So 2 times, 4 divided by 100 is 0.04. Is that okay? Good. So what is this going to do? This is going to define a vector which has these values. So x is, if you look at your x, it is going to appear like minus 2, minus 1.96, minus 1.92, 0, 1.96, 2.00. Okay. So if you look at it, there are not really 100 points, there are actually 101 points, but that's not a big deal. Okay, the distance between the points, distance between those points is obviously 0.04, but the total number of points is going to be 101, not 100. Okay, so if you have defined this, now the next thing you are going to do is do your calculation. यार पता नहीं आज क्या हो रहा है. YouTube has gone crazy. Okay, I have changed the link on YouTube, so please, I restarted the stream, so if you want to try it now. No. Okay, in any case. So we are where? Yeah, we have defined these 101 points. Now we will do our plotting for those in each individual 101 points. So one way to do it in a traditional language would be that you would do what? You would क्या करोगे? Aviral, please mute yourself. What would you do if you were to define in a normal high level language like C++ or Java? if you had to calculate the values of fx at all those 101 points, what would you do? Huh?
From -2 to in adding, we would have to write a loop from -2 to
Yeah.
2 adding 0.0.
Yeah, we would have to write a loop, but in case of octave you can easily do something. Okay, what is that? You would do a point-wise multiplication. Okay, how do you do a point-wise multiplication? So in this case, so if I had to write y is equal to x, we want to multiply each of the individual points of x. Okay, so with itself, so we would do something like this: x dot star x. Okay, what would this do? What would this dot do, dot imply? Dot implies a point-wise multiplication. On the left hand side, we have a matrix, we have a vector of length 101. On the right hand side, we have a vector of length 101. So we can this will not throw an error. If it were different lengths, then it would obviously throw an error because it does not know what to do with it. Okay, but since x is the same as x and they both have the same length, so we can use this function, which is point-wise multiplication of your individual elements. Okay, so very easy again. Finally, you will do what? If you had to plot x comma y, you would do plot x comma y, where x is your x-axis and y is your y-axis. Okay. So you in case of, I don't remember Java, but in case of C, you have to definitely put a semicolon. But in this case, you don't have to do a semicolon. If you do a semicolon, then it will not show the output in your output window, in your command window. It is not going to show any output if you put a semicolon, which is what most of the times we want. Okay, we only want to see our output at certain values. Only at those places you will not put a semicolon, and other places you are going to put a semicolon. Okay, usually I don't cover octave in my class, my TAs do it or you guys do it on your own, but I wanted to cover this a little bit so that you know a little bit about what we are doing. Okay, another thing that we can talk about a little bit is about differentiation. Okay, how will you do not normal differentiation but numerical differentiation? What is numerical differentiation? Going to the first principle and doing the differentiation. So what is the definition of of differentiation? What is the definition of differentiation? From the first principle? Nobody?
F of x plus dx minus f of x by dx.
Yeah. So even more, so your d by df by dx is equal to limit h tends to 0 f x plus h minus fx over what? H. Okay, so df by dx is this, where h is a very small quantity. Okay, so this is what we are going to use here also. Okay, so if I were to write a function, let us say I want to call this as df dx. Okay, this is the function I wanted to define. Okay, how would I do it? We could use this particular situation, but in any case, this is what we are going to use to define differentiation. Okay, I have defined a function called df dx. Okay, you can put any variable name you want, but effectively what you are going to do, you are going to do this. You are going to do x plus h minus fx divided by h. What will be the value of h?
So h would be tending to 0.
Yeah, that is all right, but mathematically what are we going to choose? Again, you are giving it to a computer program, it does not know what tending to 0 is. You have to define what the tending to 0 is.
Smallest space between the 2 points we had taken.
Huh?
So the smallest space between the 2 points we had taken
Yeah,
earlier.
that is all right, but what is that?
So we need to define h on the basis of our x, means it should be very much small in comparable to x.
Yeah, it should be small compared to the distance it takes for fx to change. Okay, so if fx is, so depending on how your fx is changing, let us say your fx looks something like this. Okay, then you have to choose a very small h. Okay, so that you can see this individual. So if you chose this big h, अगर तुमने इतना बड़ा h choose किया होता, okay, so if this was your h, then what would happen? You would not see the changes that are happening over here. Okay, so you want your h to be small so that you can capture what, any changes that are happening in your fx. Okay, so that is one thing. Now if we could make it as close to 0 as possible on your computer, okay, we could do that, but why don't we do that either? What is going to happen if I reduce reduce h to the smallest possible number, that positive number that you can write on your computer? Okay, if I do that, what is the problem with that? Any ideas?
At many places, the function is not plotted.
What? Vamshi, what did you say? Can you repeat?
Because we are not plotting the graph continuously,
Yeah.
so the I think that may be a problem.
No, my question is different. My question is, what is the problem if I choose h to be very, 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 very small? And I am saying there is a problem. What is the problem? Any idea?
Time of computation.
Yeah, that is
Will
one
be
problem.
long.
Okay, time of computation. You again, if you had to calculate for the whole range of the whole function, if you had to calculate the differentiation, then if you would choose a very small h, then that would be a problem. Your time of computation would go high. Another thing is something called as round of error. Okay, your computers, everything is written, your irrational numbers cannot be written properly on a computer, because finally even for writing one irrational number in terms of computer, how long would it take? How much memory would it require to accurately represent one single irrational number? Any idea? How much memory would it take to write one single irrational number?
It would be stored in a float type memory, so it would be some 64 bits.
No. If I want to accurately represent, as accurately as
Each digit will take one int, so it will be lot of
so
memory.
so one irrational number has how many digits?
Infinite means we can take 200 digits, then
so
we'll
if
have 800 bytes.
No. Your first answer was correct. There are infinite digits. So the whole world's memory is not enough to write one irrational number. So you have to cut it off somewhere. Okay. So you have to. So if a number is 1999 and 9 goes on, so you have to cut it off at some place. Okay. That cutting off is going to do what? That it is called as truncation. The truncation is going to introduce what? It is going to introduce an error. Okay, if your number is big, then the truncation is not that big a deal. Okay, but if your number is small, let us say it is 0.0000000000, दिख रहा है उसमें? हाँ, अभी तक तो जा रहा है. If your number looked something like this, 0000001, Okay, if this was your number, and or if this was your number, 0 point, you truncate it at this point. If you truncate it at this point, what is going to happen? It is 10% different from your original number. Okay, so that is going to introduce errors. Okay, so that is another reason. If we had even all the computational power in this world, still we want h to be not too small. Okay, because our round of errors are going to become significant. Okay, so please make sure, even if you have a lot of computational power, please make sure that you use an h which has a very a reasonable amount of this round of error associated with it. Okay, so don't choose, so if you don't understand it too much, don't worry about it. My point is, do not choose too small an h, that might cause you problems. Okay, again, how do you do integration? What is the definition of integration?
Area under.
So integration is summing up values.
Yeah, summing
over
of values.
up.
So here we are doing difference of these two values. Again, similarly, we are going to choose a small h. Okay. So again, what do you do? So if you have a function for integration, if this is your function, what do? You divide it into small parts. Okay, and each of these parts is of distance h. Okay, and you take the area under it. Again, taking area is not that. So there are many ways of taking this area. You can take either this area. Okay, the larger. So the two extremes have different values. Okay, there is one smaller value, and then there is the larger value. You could choose this, or you could choose this rectangle, the smaller rectangle. Okay, or you could also choose a triangle, sort of a trapezium on this side. So that is up to you. Okay, depending on which most accurately represents your function, you could choose any of those values to define individual small areas. Okay, so that is the basic principle on which integration works, numerical integration. So many functions you cannot calculate, not many functions, most of the functions in this world, you cannot get a closed form expression for your integration or differentiation. So in those cases, numerical integration or numerical differentiation comes to our rescue. Okay, so that is your. So let us go back to semiconductors. We have had enough of numerical methods today. Oh, where was I? So this was our density of states, EC, EV. This is the density of states in your valence band, and this is the density of states in your conduction band, G, CE and GVA. So let us also plot the Fermi function over this plot itself. So this is your FFE. Okay, this is 1 and this is 0. Now obviously your axis, only the x-axis is the same, sorry, the y-axis is the same, the x-axis is different for these two plots. The white plot has your density of states as your x-axis, and your Fermi function has your the probability, the function, probability distribution function as your x-axis. So the y-axis is the same, the x-axis is different. Now we had talked about it last time. What was our value n at E? Was GCE times FFE. Okay, at any given energy E, your density of electrons as a function of energy was given by this function. Okay, Ne is equal to GCE times FFE. Now if I were to write this pictorially in a pictorial representation, how will it look like? What does that mean? We are doing a product, so we just multiply these two and plot each individual. So if I were to plot Ne, this function, this is going to appear like, so this is energy E. I am plotting these two, multiplying them together. It looks something like this. Okay, if I multiply them together, I get here your, what is the value of EC? Sorry, GC. GC at this point is 0. Okay, so 0 multiplied by anything is obviously going to be 0. Now you are reducing F, but you are increasing GC. Okay, so it will look something like this. Okay, so this is your EC. So as you are increasing your E, your FFE is going down. Okay, so that is going to reduce your value, and your GC is increasing. So, but at some point your FFE wins over GC. Okay, so in the beginning your Ne increases and then it goes down. So what will be the total number of electrons? We just did an integration here. What will be the total number of electrons? I cannot hear anybody.
Area of that closed figure.
Area of this. Okay, so the area is equal to n. That is what we did last time. We integrated from EC to infinity. Okay, so the area of, which is effectively the area of this particular plot, the product of GC and FE. Okay, so that is going to give you your total number of electrons in this particular conduction band. Now, if I wanted to find the total number of holes in my valence band, how will I do that? Holes are again given by the function P. So what will be P as a function of energy? Obviously we'll have density of states. Okay, total number of states multiplied by what? किससे multiply करेंगे हम? If I want to find out the total number of holes. So what did we do here? We multiplied the number of states multiplied by the total number of the probability of electron, probability of finding of electron in that particular state. That is what we did here. Number of states multiplied by probability of finding of an electron. We wanted to find out here, what do we want to find out? We want to find out the absence of an electron. So total number of states multiplied by the probability of absence of an electron. How will you find, what is the term for absence of an electron? Probability of absence of an electron?
1 minus F of E.
1 minus FFE. Okay, so that is going to give you the probability of an electron missing from a place. Okay, so what is the function 1 minus FFE look like? Iska 1, if you subtract from 1, you will get something like this. Okay, so this is your function 1 minus FFE. Okay, so if you multiply these two, multiply your blue curve and the white curve in your valence band, you are going to get your P times your PE. Okay, so it will look pretty similar to what you have here. So this is your PE. Okay, and your area of this is going to give you what? What is the area going to give you? The integral of P of E D, what is that? That is your total number of holes. Okay, so your area of this curve gives you total number of electrons, the area of this particular curve gives you total number of holes. Okay, and this is again given by, we had already written down what the value of n was. N was nc exponential minus ec minus ef over kt, and p is nv. C stands for conduction band, V stands for valence band. Exponential, if you do the calculations, you're going to find out that it is going to be minus EF minus EV over KT. Okay, and the value of NC, we already wrote it down last time, 2 Mn star over, let me write it again, two pi Mn star KT h square to the power 3 by 2. So that is your NC. The value of NV is completely analogous to that. You have 2 pi MP star KT over h square to the power 3 by 2. Okay, there we have Mn star and here we have MP star, where this is called as effective density of states in the conduction band, and Nv is your effective density of states in the valence band. So why is it called effective density of states? Can anybody guess what is happening, what happens in this particular function? What is the maximum value that this function can take? What is the maximum value that P can take? Even if for any possible permutation and combination, whatever you want to do here, what is the maximum value that this can take? Within the constraint what? Within the constraint that your EF lies between EV and EC. Okay, that is the only constraint that we are applying. Within that constraint, what is the maximum value that this particular function can take?
NV into e power minus 3.
Huh? NV? Okay. Why? Because EF, I am saying EF can, the minimum value of EF can be EV. Okay, so EV minus EV is going to be 0. So exponential of minus 0 is 1. Okay, so the maximum value that this can take is NV. The maximum value that this function can take is again NC. So effectively, what are we doing? We are effectively saying that, okay, this is the maximum number of states you have in one sense. Okay, so in one sense, this is the maximum number of states which can be filled by electrons. It is, think of it this way. So that is why we call this as an effective density of states. For all reasonable semiconductors, this is the density of states that we have to worry about. Okay, obviously the density of the total number of states is what in a semiconductor. For example, in your conduction band, what is the total number of states for all practical purposes? How many states do you have? Effectively infinite. Okay, practically they are infinite, but only some of those. Yeah.
Sir, but if we take EF minus EV is less than 3 kT, then the Boltzmann approximation will fall out. Then
yeah, I agree with that. It does not actually, this equation does not work over there, but I'm just giving you an intuition about why we call this as effective density of states. You are right that it does not work at those values. It does not work, but I'm just telling you why we call this as effective density of states. Where does density of states come into the picture over here? Okay, this is obviously a hand waving sort of argument. There is I just wanted to give you the origin of why we call it effective density of states. You are right where you're coming from. Anybody? So yeah, that is your value of NC and NV. Now where should your EF lie? EF कहाँ पे होना चाहिए? If we had an intrinsic semiconductor, okay, what is an intrinsic semiconductor? If we had an intrinsic semiconductor, what is intrinsic? Which has no impurities. Okay, it is a completely pure piece of silicon. It has no impurities. It's called an intrinsic semiconductor. If it has no impurities, it is purely silicon. Now, when can you have an electron? A free electron will be available to you in conduction band only when an electron goes from, it does not appear out of nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. Originally at temperature T is equal to 0 Kelvin, this is empty. Now if it has electrons, they have to come from somewhere. Where do they come from? Yes, Rudraksh?
Valence band.
From the valence band. An electron has to go from here to here. So in an intrinsic semiconductor, for every free electron you have a hole associated with it. Okay, so the total number of, in case of intrinsic materials, your N is going to be equal to P at all times. Okay, N is going to be equal to P for an intrinsic materials. Okay, so if that has to be true, your area of these two values should be the same. Okay, if you look at it, this is a symmetric function. Okay, this is symmetric around this value obviously, but these two are also symmetric. The values of this blue function here, the blue function here is the same as the values of the orange function over there. Okay, they are symmetric. Okay, the Fermi function is symmetric around half, around your Fermi level, and so these two functions are also symmetric around this Fermi level. Okay, the distance, if we go in this distance or we go the equal distance in this direction, your blue curve is going to have the same value as your orange curve. Okay, so now we know that these two functions are symmetric. Okay, these two functions are symmetric, and let us assume that the values of GCE and GVE are same. Okay, if the values of GVE and GCE are same, when will that happen? That will happen when the effective masses are same. If the effective masses are of Mn star and Mp star are same, then the function GCE and GVE will be symmetric again. Okay, and you want your areas, these two areas, to be equal. How will that happen? When will that happen?
EF equal to EC plus EV by 2.
Yeah, EF lies exactly between the center of your, so your EF is equal to EC plus EV by 2. It is exactly in the middle of your band gap. Okay, so only in that case your areas are going to be equal if we assume that GCE and GVE are symmetric. By symmetric I mean that your effective masses are equal in both the cases. Now if let us say our effective masses are not the same, if effective masses are not the same, then what should happen? One thing is sure. What is that one thing? That the area under these two curves should stay the same. Okay, because that is physics. We cannot break that. All of our models, please understand that any of our models, if they break our real observed phenomena, those models are useless. Okay, so our model has to follow our real observed phenomena. What is the real observed phenomena? That the number of electrons is equal, number of free electrons is equal to the number of holes. Okay, so for this particular course, most of the times when I say electrons, I imply free electrons. Okay, I am not going to again and again say free electrons, free electrons, free electrons. It is understood that I am talking about free electrons. What are free electrons? The electrons which are present in your conduction band, those are free electrons. Okay. So I want your number of holes to be equal to number of electrons, and I am telling you that your Mn star and Mp star are no longer the same. Let us say your Mn star is larger than Mp star. Let us say that, if that is true. If Mn star is larger than Mp star, then what is going to happen to your GCE and GVE? What will be the relation between those two? Go back to your notes and see what is the equation for GCE. क्या होगा relation दोनों में?
EF will shift towards EV. Then I guess.
No, forget about that. First, let us talk about what happens to what will be the relation between GC and GV. The density of states in the conduction band and the density of states in the valence band. What will be the relation between those two?
GC greater than GV.
Huh? I did not understand. Can you repeat?
GC greater than GV.
GC greater than GV. You are right. Because it is proportional to Mn to the power 3 by 2 or something like that. Okay, so it is proportional to Mn. So GCE will be greater than GVE. Okay, for a given value of E. For a given value of E, GCE is greater than GV. That implies that this is GC has a larger values compared to GV. If I want the product, the sum of the product to be equal, okay, what do I have to do? If I shift this Fermi function towards the top, okay, अगर मैं Fermi function को ऊपर की तरफ ले जाऊं, if I take it up, what is going to happen? Or let me bring it to the bottom. That will make, I don't have to repeat it then. If I bring it towards the bottom, what is going to happen? अगर मैं इसको पूरे को ऐसे खींच लूँ, okay, this blue and orange curve both move together, okay, because they are dependent on EF. Now I am moving my EF down. If I move my EF down, what is going to happen to your the two these? See, this does not move. Your GC and GV curves do not move. Okay. If I bring this down, what is going to happen to this this function over here? For a given value of E close to EC, what happens compared to the previous situation when it was in the middle? If I bring this down, what is going to happen to this orange curve? नीचे लेकर आऊँगा तो at this value. Anybody?
Smaller.
It will become smaller. Okay. So what are we doing? We are effectively reducing the value of. If I bring this down, I am effectively reducing the value of Fe in the conduction band. So this product is going to become smaller compared to when it was exactly in the middle. What is going to happen on this side? Your 1 minus FFE is going to become a little bit larger. Okay. So this becomes a little smaller, this becomes a little larger. This was already a little bit larger and this was already a little bit smaller. So smaller multiplied by larger, larger multiplied by smaller, we can move it appropriately such that the products, the sum of these two products becomes equal to each other. Okay. So if your Mn star is larger than Mp star, if your electron effective mass is larger than your hole effective mass in an intrinsic semiconductor, your intrinsic Fermi level, the Fermi level for an intrinsic material is going to be a little bit smaller, little bit lower towards the valence band as compared to an mid gap. Okay, this is also called as the E mid gap. Okay, it is the middle of your gap. EC plus EV by 2 is your mid gap. Now this becomes your EFI. What is EFI? Your intrinsic Fermi level. Okay, I stands for intrinsic. So this is your intrinsic Fermi level. Intrinsic Fermi level is going to be slightly lower than your mid gap. because of the difference in the effective masses of electrons and holes. If your effective mass of electron is higher, then it will be low towards your valence band. If your effective mass of holes is higher, then it will move towards your conduction band. Okay. So now let us do one more thing. What is that? Let us try to take a product of N and P. ठीक है, N और P का प्रोडक्ट लो, क्या मिलेगा तुम्हें? I'm going to erase this. So if I multiply N and P, one more thing, since we have not applied any external voltages or external anything, okay, except temperature, we are going to call these as equilibrium carrier concentrations. Okay, N and P both are called, and we apply a subscript to them. Okay, N0 and P0, these are called as N0, P0 are your equilibrium carrier concentrations. Okay, what is equilibrium? This is also called as aka thermal equilibrium. Why is it called thermal equilibrium? Because our temperature is constant throughout our semiconductor. Okay, that is why we call it as thermal equilibrium. And it also means that we are not applying any external voltages, any external fields, any external magnetic fields, or anything external except temperature. Okay, that is the only whenever I'm saying whenever I'm talking about equilibrium or thermal equilibrium, the only externally applied force is temperature, which you cannot take away. Okay, you have to apply that. Because इस दुनिया में हर चीज़ का कुछ टेम्परेचर होता है. Okay, so that is the only external force that is being applied to your semiconductor. That is your temperature. Okay, so we call those values the value of number of electrons and density, not number of electrons, density of electrons in equilibrium is called as N0. Density of holes in equilibrium is called as P0. Now if I were to multiply N0 and P0, N0 और P0 को अगर मैं मल्टीप्लाई करूंगा तो क्या मिलेगा मेरे को? ये वाला N0 है एंड दिस इज योर P0. So you multiply NC, NV exponential. When you multiply exponents, the inner arguments become added up. So if you add these two arguments, what are you going to get? KT, you have minus EC minus EF plus EF minus EV. Is that okay? ठीक है. What can we do about this EF and EF? They both are gone. What is EC minus EV? What is the value of EC minus EV?
EG.
EG. Okay. EC minus EV is equal to EG, which is your band gap. Okay. So we have N0 P0 is equal to NC NV exponential minus EG over KT. Okay. Now what? So this is for an equilibrium situation. For an intrinsic semiconductor, okay. For an intrinsic semiconductor, what do you have? You have N0 is equal to P0, obviously. Okay, number of holes is equal to the number of electrons. Okay, so we define a special symbol for that, which is Ni. Okay, Ni is your intrinsic carrier concentration. So this is your intrinsic carrier concentration. Okay, n0 p is equal to p0 is equal to ni. Now in an intrinsic material, look at this, n0 p0 does not depend on the value of EF. Eg is a constant, temperature for a given temperature is obviously, kT is a constant for a given temperature, nc is a constant, nv is a constant, everything is a constant on the right hand side. Okay, so we can put these two values here, ni, so n0 is ni, p0 is again ni. Okay, so you have ni squared. Ni squared is this value, so the value of ni is going to be, ni की value क्या होगी, square root of nc nv exponential. When you take square root of the exponential, your 2 is going to go inside your exponent. Okay, so this is the value of ni. So if you know the value of nc, you know the value of nv, you know the value of eg, you know the value of kT, you can find out the value of ni, which is the intrinsic carrier concentration in a semiconductor. This is going to be very useful for our rest of the course. The intrinsic carrier concentration for a semiconductor. For silicon, the value of ni, again I'll give you an example of why these models are just models, because reality is usually very different from the models that we draw or build for ourselves. So we have, so in silicon, the value of ni in our book is chosen as 1.5 into 10 to power 10 per centimeter cube. Okay, value of nc that is usually given is 2.8 into 10 to power 19 per centimeter cube. Value of nv is 1.04 into 10 to power 19 per centimeter cube. Okay, so these are the values of nc and nv. And what is the value of eg? Is 1.12 electron volts. So these are, if you were to apply these three values into this equation, okay, if you were to apply this into this equation, and this is again at room temperature at T is equal to 300 Kelvin. So at T is equal to 300 Kelvin, if you were to calculate it, you will get Ni calculated is equal to 6.95 into 10 to power 9 per centimeter cube. Okay, if you were to use this equation to calculate your Ni, you will get this, but in reality it is of this order. Okay, in some places, in some books you will find that they just use 10 to power 10 per centimeter cube. Here in our book they have chosen 1.5 into 10 to power 10 per centimeter cube. Upon calculation we are finding it to be 6 into 10 to power 9 per centimeter cube. So reality is a little more complicated than the simplistic models that we draw for our own systems. Okay, again, models are just models. If they do not, most of the times they do not fit our observations, but as long as enough people accept those models, people accept them. Okay, finally it is about acceptance, even in the scientific community, how much you may want to believe that it is not, it is all based on science. Okay, so again, what is science? Everything is again finally based on consensus, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever you want to call it. It is the way it is. So but even if, let us say that this was true or this was true, it does not really matter, because these go into exponents. Okay, most of the times the value of Ni or the value of n's and they go into exponential something. Okay, so even if it's a product of 2, it does not make too much of a difference. Not too much, sorry, I am saying wrong. It is usually goes into log. Okay, I'm sorry. If it were exponential, then it will make a lot of difference. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. So most of the times they go into a function of log. So log 2 is how much? So the difference between this and this is approximately 2. Log 2 is कितना होता है? Point 693. Is that right?
0.03.
0.3010.
0.3.
0.3010.
No, when I say log 2, I mean ln2. ln2 is how much?
0.693.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So ln2 is 0.693. It does not make much of a difference when you are adding it. So this is added to your actual expression. Okay, so log 2 plus whatever log you are getting. So it does not make too much of a difference. So that is where we are very hopeful कि भाई हमारा error थोड़ा बहुत हो तो कोई परेशानी की बात नहीं है. Okay. So should we continue or should we stop?
Stop.
Why? तुम हमेशा बोलते हो भाई. क्या नाम है तुम्हारा? हमेशा स्टॉप करा देते हो. कौन है? अब नहीं बोले, अब नहीं लोगे नाम है. किसने बोला स्टॉप? कोई डांट लगने वाली बात नहीं है, मैं तो बस पूछ रहा हूँ.
सागनिक.
कौन? Who is it?
शिवांश.
नहीं नहीं, तुमसे नहीं पूछ रहा यार, मैं उससे पूछ रहा हूँ जो जो बोल रहा है. ऐसे मैं कोई वो थोड़ी कर रहा हूँ, किसी की डांट थोड़ी लगने वाली है.
यस सर.
अरे अब तुमको
पिछली बार मैंने नहीं बोला था लेकिन सर.
अच्छा, पिछली बार तुमने नहीं बोला था, सिमिलर आवाज थी. चलो कोई बात नहीं, ठीक है. ओके, विल कंटिन्यू ऑन वेंसडे. बाय बाय. एनीबडी हैज अ क्वेश्चन? इफ एनीबडी हैज अ क्वेश्चन वी कैन कंटिन्यू, अदर्स कैन लीव. Again a reminder, please do not cheat in your assignments. It's not a big deal. नहीं होता है कोई बात नहीं, कोशिश करो. ठीक है. ओके, बाय बाय.
Sir,
या
sir, why is there so much of a difference between the calculated value and the real value of NI?
because our models are not that accurate. Again, we are making certain assumptions to, like one of the assumptions is that your effective mass is constant. There are many things, the way we calculate our effective mass, there are many things where our models are not really that accurate. All of our models are even in classical mechanics, most of our models do not actually represent, because there are many unknown forces that come into the real world. Okay, even if F is equal to ma is valid, we cannot really most of the times calculate the exact value of a, because we do not know what f's are. Okay, but here it is even much more complicated when we are talking about the orders of the numbers that we are getting is 10 to the power 10. Okay, so the basic problem here is not just that is that our model is not that accurate. Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you.